Season 11 of Doctor Who has finally wrapped up, and it's safe to say this is one of the most hotly anticipated and hotly debated seasons of the show in quite a long time. Showrunner Chris Chibnall has really done some bold things with the construction of the show, and after 11 episodes it's time to see if they all held up. Let's look at all the episodes, shall we? The inaugural episode of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor is a bit of a shame as it started so well and then sort of petered out by the end. Visually, this is without a doubt the best the show has ever looked, with some truly gorgeous cinematography throughout this episode and the entire season. Jodie Whittaker is fantastic in the role with a terrific sense of energy and enthusiasm and a great quirky, quiet badassery. The rest of the cast also do well, although it takes until later episodes for Bradley Walsh as Graham to really grow on me. But Mandip Gill and Tosin Cole are really great additions to the cast. The sense of anticipation and mystery is engrossing, with the reveal of the alien bad guy being a real showstopper of a moment. But after all this build-up, the episode soon ends up falling apart with rushed and contrived plot points at the end. The DNA bombs, for example, are set up and then resolved entirely off-screen. Tim Shaw, while an interesting design, is an extremely bland villain. But most of all, it's the death of Ryan's Nan which is the weakest point. By this time in the episode, the main antagonist was already defeated, and so Graham and Nan continuing to fight the tentacle monster and her subsequent death felt a little strange. Overall, the entire second half of the episode felt incredibly rushed, and the emotional impact just doesn't land like it should do. Great cliffhanger though, which brings us into... This episode was a lot stronger, with a true space adventure for the new Doctor to tackle. The location shooting in South Africa combined with the excellent cinematography makes this an absolutely stunning episode to look at, and the mystery surrounding the extinct civilization on the planet is compelling. The guest characters are also very watchable, even if the crowded cast means that Yaz is left with very little to do. But overall I enjoyed this one a lot more, and the final reveal of the new TARDIS is awesome. ROSA was also a strong episode. Doctor Who has done pseudo-historicals before, but this time it's a far more personal event which our characters become entwined in. The 1950s Alabama setting is beautifully recreated, and Vinette Robinson is a complete show stealer as the titular ROSA. Seeing how Ryan and Yaz discussed racial inequality is also a welcome and relevant addition to the episode. Being a whitey white man myself means I obviously never struggle with this kind of thing, so seeing these two characters address these issues so openly will no doubt be eye-opening to many. Well, hopefully. While I felt the motivation for the villain was a little unclear, the time ripple effect one-upsmanship was a fun battle of wits between him and the Doctor's team. What brought the episode down a tad for me was the bizarre inclusion of a pop song, which was so jarring it unfortunately undercut a lot of the drama in the episode's climax. Overall a strong outing though. Arachnids in the UK was pretty poor. Although Yaz gets something to do at the beginning of the episode, the tonal and thematic confusion of the episode after we get to the hotel left me scratching my head. I'm all for a run around from big monsters, but the inclusion of a Donald Trump-esque businessman in the story baffled me. Chris North's performance was far too over the top, and I don't really know what his purpose in the story was trying to say. Well, to clarify, I understand it's a jab at Donald Trump, but I'm confused as to why that attempt at commentary is included in a story about monster spiders. This episode was fine. While the Ting was certainly cute, it never really struck me as a particularly strong threat for the crew, and the crew themselves were a mixed bag. There simply wasn't enough time to develop each of their stories and have the audience care about them enough when shit really hit the fan. I did like the Doctor geeking out over the science of the ship's engines though. Finally, Yaz is given something to do in another pseudo-historical. Once again, this is an avenue to showcase a lesser-seen perspective to the audience. While I was aware of the partition of India, the family story surrounding the event was quite moving. However, for me the story ended up sharing similar problems with Twice Upon a Time in that it's not an evil plan thing. We spend much of the episode's runtime investigating the perceived threat of these alien demons, only to discover they mean no harm at all. In hindsight, it makes the episode seem quite padded. This was the most Russell T Davies feeling episode of the season, and as a result, I quite enjoyed it. We get some classic Doctor Who thrills as the Doctor and her team run around the gigantic warehouse, clashing with robot boogeymen and embarking on some high-octane action. The mystery of this episode is actually paid off in a satisfying way, although I do think the thematic destination of the episode gets a little muddled when the motivations of the true villain are revealed. It was also cool to see comedian Lee Mack make an appearance, because I'm a big fan. This was a really weak episode for me. From minute one, something just feels off about the pacing of this episode. The editing is incredibly haphazard and gives the audience no time to absorb any of the information they're given. The poor editing also makes every scene set around the lake a nightmare of twisted scene geography with characters seemingly teleporting around the environment. Alan Cumming as King James was also off-putting. His over-the-top comedic performance is completely at odds with the tone of the rest of the episode. What should be a slow, plodding, gothic mystery is routinely ruined by the hyperactive pace of the episode and the bizarre performance by Alan Cumming. While there are some interesting ideas and relevant themes, they all fly by too quickly to be developed in any significant way. For me, it's the weakest episode of the season. This is once again an intriguing episode which doesn't quite stick the landing. While I thought the concept of a sentient parallel universe was fascinating, not a whole lot was done with the idea when the characters actually interacted with it. Once again, I think the runtime constrained the ideas of the story, and as a result it has less impact. However, I was honestly delighted with the off-the-wall weirdness of the Doctor talking to the frog. It is completely bonkers and strange, and I loved it, but overall it's a mixed bag of an episode. The season finale was just as disappointing as the first episode. We have some truly brilliant mystery and atmosphere built up, only to have the second half of the episode rushed to the end in an unsatisfying way. Tim Shaw is still a boring villain but with a cool design, and his motivation and evil plans seem vague at best. All this effort is put in to make the planet seem creepy and dangerous, and the memory-sapping mechanic is inspired, but never really used. As soon as I heard this idea, I was waiting for it to come back and hound our main characters. But even when Yaz and the Doctor removed their protection from this threat, it never paid off. Problems like that are all over this episode, such as Graham's epic final conflict with Tim Shaw being a complete damp squib. A real shame. While the season finale was a letdown, the New Year special made up for it in a big way. Resolution is one of the best Dalek stories in a long time, and finally returned a sense of excitement and thrill to the season, which was mostly lacking aside from Kerblam. The way the Dalek had to rebuild itself was dastardly creative plotting, which led to some spine-chilling scenes and wonderful performances. The scrap heap challenge version of the Dalek casing is also a great one-off design, and the Recon class of Dalek soldier is a clever way to up the stakes from the usual pepper pots. I also felt that this was the satisfying conclusion to the Graham, Ryan, Nan and Dad's family subplot. The performances were all strong, and the dovetailing of this subplot's conclusion coinciding with the final confrontation with the Dalek made the climax really sing. An inventive way to bring back the Daleks, and an honestly thrilling final episode for this season. Overall, I think Season 11 was alright. I applaud Chibnall's bold choices, but I hope Season 12 learns from some of the mistakes of the season. The episodes this season have almost all suffered from great build-up, but poor payoff. It seems the new creative team does engaging mystery very well, but aside from Kerblam and Resolution, the fast-paced thrills and sense of adventure was missing from this season. This also wasn't helped by a mostly forgettable music score. I really missed Murray Gold's music here. While his compositions sometimes went too bombastic, his style really gave even the most mundane of actions a sense of epicness. In this season, Resolution was really the only episode where I felt the music truly came alive. The more crowded TARDIS also meant that oftentimes certain companions got the shaft, and unfortunately that was often Yaz. While Graham and Ryan had a lot of interpersonal drama to work with, Yaz seemed to be almost entirely forgotten by most of the scripts. Now that Graham and Ryan's drama seems resolved, I really don't need more of that subplot. I really hope Yaz gets more to do in the next season. Jodie Whittaker has the potential to be a brilliant Doctor, and while she has a distinct and enjoyable personality, it seems we don't know much about her as a person. The Doctor has virtually no character arcs in any of the episodes this season. We've certainly seen her look scared or worried, but we haven't had any really emotionally vulnerable moments for audiences to connect with. While Moffat's era became far too obsessed with the Doctor and the character's mythology, this season seems to have gone too far the other way. almost entirely disinterested with the Doctor as a character. Another gripe I have with the season are instances of tonal confusion. Yaz, Ryan and Graham are all grounded characters, but it also makes them seem far too restrained and other characters seem far too over the top. There's definitely a balance between realistic personal drama and larger-than-life melodrama, which Chibnall hasn't seemed to have found yet, but it's certainly possible. In spite of everything, I'll keep an eye on season 12 and see how this new era of the show develops. There's far too much talent and great ideas behind the show to dismiss it out of hand because of flaws which can easily be remedied. Did it suck? I wouldn't say so, no, but it could have been better, and I certainly believe it can get better. Drender Morvo asks, do you think the new Picard show will actually be good? Yes, I do. I know it's divisive, but I've really enjoyed Discovery overall, so I'm looking forward to all the new Star Trek stuff being announced. Picard is my favourite Star Trek captain, and Patrick Stewart's performance is always sublime. I think whatever ideas were good enough for him to bring the character back will certainly be interesting if anything. If you like my videos, subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on all my new uploads. Over on my Patreon you can see videos early for as little as $5 a month. Speaking of such, I'd like to thank my Patreons Andy Luke, Chris Lord, James Vanderhaeg, L. Carton, Larry Bennett, T. Stoney and Billy Coleman. Until next time, have a good one, and as always, live long and prosper.